Okay, well, things are heating up in the PWHL and Boston Fleet. And Casey, I know I've seen you quite around the team a lot. Well, there are 2 games remaining at Montreal and then again against Minnesota. The Fleet are coming off a huge 3-0 win against Toronto. So, Casey, what do you think was the biggest difference maker over their Toronto win?
Oh my gosh. There was a number of things that I thought was very notable for their win over Toronto. The one thing that I want to point out is coming back from Worlds, and I was talking to a few of the ladies over there, as well as shout out to Faith, their PR lady, and they talked about the fact that, like, you're not sure what the rust period might be coming back from something like this. And we know Hillary Knight had a killer performance over at Worlds, but you didn't see any rust. That was what I enjoyed the most. And being there at the game, it was also fan appreciation night. You saw a Boston Fleet team also get off to a very quick start. And that's not something that we've seen that often throughout. We've seen this team rally back. We've seen this team force overtimes. We've kind of seen a lot of that, like, back end, second end energy and momentum, but we haven't seen that from the go. And it was like, puck drop, Boston Fleet, go. So Lexi opened up the scoring, and they just continue to feed off each other from there as well. So that's what I saw in terms of, like, how they were able to not only set the pace, set the tone, but completely command that game. They came out to a hot start. Second period, you saw Toronto get a little testy, try to force things in their manner. They did outshoot the Boston Fleet, but you didn't see them crumble under that pressure. It was more of like a accuracy versus volume, like Boston Fleet being very accurate with their opportunities and their scoring chances versus Toronto kind of just continuing to push pucks forward and try to get them on the net. And that didn't make the Fleet crumble whatsoever. Coach Kessel even mentioned it in the post-game press conference. Like, yeah, we got our backs to the wall just a little bit for a second in that second period, but we didn't allow it to take us out of our game. And I asked the girls after the game as well, like, does this feel like the most complete game that you've played all season long? 60 minutes of hockey. And for the most part, everyone said yes.
Yeah, well, having been outshot and then winning 3-0 is pretty wild to me. So I'd love to hear more. So here's what Coach Kessel had to say post-game.
We worked hard, obviously, with our group that was away, but I think the energy is just different when the room's full. And so it's nice to have everyone back, and it's loud in there, so it's nice.
It's nice to have the next person step up today.
Yeah. It was great to see, a little bit more of a scoring distribution, and I thought all 4 lines were going and anyone could be on the ice at any time, and that's, what a coach's dream is. That's what you want every game.
Right, all 4 lines going, and she's able to have confidence in all 4 lines. And a huge, re-addition to the team is Hannah Belka. In what ways do you feel like Hannah Belka, gave this Fleet team a boost?
Oh my gosh. Well, to come back from injury for one, she picked up an assist that night, and then on top of picking up an assist, she was loading up on hits. I think she had like 3 or 4 hits on the night on the day as well. So to have that confidence to come back. And something else that I loved is that Hannah did talk about the support in the locker room when you're coming back from injury. This locker room has had to deal with a number of injuries for each of their top athletes. And she just talked about the support and the encouragement and also the things that you see when you're sitting up in the box. You kind of relearn the game in a different way, or you see things that you don't see when you're down on ice level. And so I feel like all of that just kind of was like fully encompassed upon her return. And there's such a great relationship in this locker room that I feel like it just adds that jump to have, Hannah get back on the ice and be playing alongside of you. And you saw it translate quickly. Also, something else that Coach Kessel mentioned there that's important is like, all 4 lines were rolling. So when you get a Hannah back and when health is starting to translate on your side and you get depth scoring when you're getting ready to go for the most pivotal part of the season being postseason, I think all of it helps. It all creates jumps and momentum swings, and it just changes the dynamic in the most encouraging way possible. So Hannah just kept saying how excited she was to be back. But I think you saw it in her game just as much as you saw it in her smile in the post-game pressers.
Yeah, it's also really dangerous to have that many threats, right? And it's like your opponent can never be off. Oh, shoot, next line. All right, we can't, this can't be a breather, catching our breath, right? If anything. And just excited for Hannah Belka. And I actually overlapped with her at Boston College.
I love it.
So I was in a few communication classes with her. And I remember there was this one, and it was more like stats focused. And I'm not a math girly. That's why I'm doing podcasting with Casey and getting to talk. And so she was a big help for me because she knew what she was doing in that class, and I definitely admired her intelligence in the communications class.
Oh my gosh,
that
I'm
was
sure
fun.
I'm sure it translates too. But yeah, she just has such a bubbly personality, and we kind of talked about it earlier. Like, I love when people have just that switch that flips and whatnot. So she definitely has that. But I think something else that played in for the Boston Fleet during that game, that big win versus Toronto, is the fact that, like, as the team is trending on the healthier side, as you get, Hannah's back into the lineup, you're finding stability at the perfect time. I just remember, I think it was like January, February, we were talking to Natalie, and she was, mentioning the fact that, like, this team is starting to find their identity a little bit. It's very hard to find your identity when the lineup is changing quite often, when some of your star players are going down or when your depth scoring is going down. So they're getting everyone healthy at the right time. Hannah creates that jump and also has her own formality of leadership, which I think helps too. But there was so much buzz in the building, and just, I want to give a big shout out to Lexi because she's the fashionista of the team.
She
so
is.
It was already
She's
like,
got the best
what's she
pregame
gonna wear?
walk-ups.
Yeah, the walk up was already one thing, and it was like, okay, she came in hot with like a whole set on, and it's like, then she opens the scoring, then everybody just goes completely berserk. And they did something else really well too. Toronto has one of the top power plays when it comes to the PWHL, and they were able to make sure that did not create any momentum and take the game away from them whatsoever. Coach gave a big shout out to Jill Saunier because she had like some key block shots in the mix. But it just felt like an all hands on deck from every player, regardless of their position and their role. Everybody just kind of expanded themselves in that moment to make sure that they continued to control the pace in the game versus Toronto.
Yeah, and you mentioned kind of the switches within the team and in the roster and in the lineups, and there was a goalie switch. Yeah. Right? So what are your thoughts on the decision? Because we did win 3-0. The Fleet did win 3-0. So what were your thoughts on making this goalie switch so late in the season?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things that play into it. Everyone coming back from Worlds, for one, you want to check in with fatigue. Natalie mentioned something brilliant that I didn't even think about at the moment. If jet lag was going to be a factor for anybody returning from playing for Worlds. But then you also have to see, okay, where does our depth truly lie? And goalie becomes the most crucial position when you get into the postseason. We're seeing it right now in the NHL. Some of the best goalies are not coming up for their teams right now. So to know that you kind of have that back and in that rotation, Soderberg's been great. Frankel's been great. Now we need to see what Clara can do. And I mean, to come in and post a shutout is fantastic. And even she mentioned it. She's just been waiting for her moment. And I think that she more than rose to the occasion. She has some funny pregame rituals with oranges, but she didn't have oranges. She actually had eggs Benedict and gave them a shout out after her big 3-0 shutout victory. But I think that a lot of it was just kind of like, let's see what we have here. And this was a good time to try to figure it out. And you can just see the appreciation and the gratitude for Clara to get that opportunity and that bump.
Yeah, and you said 27 shutouts, right?
Yeah.
29 stops. And that is just incredible, especially, having that quick change. Mm-hmm. And so here's what Coach Kessel had to say about the goalie switch.
I thought we had a few key blocks at the end of the game there. Jill Saunier, laid out, double stacked the pads, and had the next shift, I think, had a great block off of her stick as well. So I think, that's what's going to help a PK be successful. Yeah, I mean, not an easy decision. We have 3 of the best goalies in the world, and I think, she had a tremendous Worlds, but so did Emma, and I don't know, I think just it was a gut feeling, and we kind of went with it, and, it was a tough decision because they're both fantastic, and, you want both of them to do well and succeed, and but Clara stepped in and played tremendous, so we're really happy for her.
Well, like we mentioned, the Fleet have 2 games remaining at Montreal and then versus Minnesota. And so here's what they have to do in order to get the number 2 seed. There's a few things. They must win out, no overtimes. They need actual wins. They also need Toronto to lose another game. It's always very hard as a player and as a team when you're like hoping the other teams lose. It's like kind of out of your power.
You're trying not to focus on it.
You're trying not to focus on it, but you kind of need it to get done. And then that would secure them the number 2 seed. And Montreal currently sits at the top with 48 points. But just fast forwarding to tonight, their game against Montreal. They're playing the number 1 seed. What do you think the Fleet need to do in order to get the win tonight?
Yeah, well, we've seen these 2 teams play each other so tremendously hard. I think it just kind of I think this team just has to tap back to what they did so well versus Toronto. You know, you were going against a top power play unit. You had people like Jill Saunier put their body on the line and come up, you know, very strong for her team and blocking those shots. But you don't want to be in the position to where you're getting pinned in your zone, you're over defending because you're going against a very tactical team, a bit quicker paced team, and then a difficult goalie. So I talked about kind of accuracy versus that volume. Accuracy could play in hard for them versus Montreal tonight because you're trying to get past one of the best goalies in the league. But the biggest thing is going to be setting the tone as fast as possible, just like they did versus Toronto. You don't want to be picking up your game towards the end of the second period or jumping back in the third period or forcing overtime, because that's just kind of been the script between these two teams just about all season long. It's getting on the board early. It's being able to protect your lead, and it's forcing Montreal to play your game. And I think that they'll have the ability to do so. Again, they'll be able to draw from some stability from Saturday. So I'm hoping that, like, again, health being on their side, getting all four lines involved. They did a lot of things very well versus Toronto that I think can help them versus Montreal.
And getting all four lines involved, is there a player on the fleet that you think is going to have a big game that people probably aren't talking about right now?
Oh, that's a great question. Defensively, I feel like they just had some people get extremely involved. I mean, Keller had a great game. And I mean, she comes up strong in a number of categories for this team. But I don't know if I'm just like stuck on Lexi because of like fashion and her opening the scoring versus Toronto. But
look good, feel good, play good. Like,
yeah,
it's a real
just like
thing.
The whole combination
So
of
more
things.
so, my question should have been asked, like, who are you most excited for to see walk into the game?
I'm most excited to see Lexi walk into the game, but honestly, actually, I want to see what next step Hannah takes. That excitement and that gratitude just to be back on the ice, and again, to come up with an assist, to have those hits, this is going to be a neck-and-neck matchup, and I feel like Hannah can be a difference maker. So I'm going to look to her for tonight's action.
Sometimes taking you off the field or off the ice can really give you a new level to your game because you have a whole new appreciation for it.
Yep, that's exactly what I think that it is. It's the level of appreciation, and Boston Fleet just want to do better than they did last year, and they're in a good position to do so.